All right, it's 4 minutes after. I think we might as well get started. Wade, are you ready?
Perfect. Yes, I am.
Absolutely. Good. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second in a series of webinars related to Teams and Microsoft Office and a few other things like that. It's interesting. We do a lot of these generally live as lunch and learns, all getting together in the same place. We're going to do our best to recreate that experience by having live presenters and having you ask questions along the way, and us be able to answer those in real time. So I was trying to think about how to open this up. Last week I opened it up about all of us working from home and having our kids running around in the background while we're trying to do events like these. And I watched Jimmy Kimmel last night, and he says, "Welcome to day 397 of quarantine." And I think it's interesting because we all feel like that to an extent. What day actually is it, and how long have we been going through this? But it's also more of a reason why we're doing these webinars is because this is not just a one-time thing that we're all going to get over. As a CEO, by the way, my name is Jeff Rogers, the CEO and founder of Big Green IT. But as the CEO, I wrote an email or a letter out to our employees last week and said, hey, we're not just going to wake up on Monday and all of a sudden it's just going to be different. And it's going to be back to the same or back to normal, as you would say. There is not going to be any magic button, and we're going to be doing these things. And this new world of work from home is now going to be with us. And so it's very pertinent at this time to get together and be able to talk about collaboration and things like today, like Teams. So what to expect from today's presentation. Normally, if we do these in person, at a lunch and learn, and we're saving this about an hour and a half, but we're going to try to keep this to about 30 to 35 minutes. There will be a couple of poll questions that we'll ask here before we get started, just to get an idea of the people that are listening and what you're right now using Teams or using 365 or what you're trying to get out of today. Also, we have the ability for you to type in questions. So type them in real time, and I'll do my best to interrupt the presentation so that the questions get read at about the time that the information is coming across. And for the slides, you're welcome to take notes, as many as you want, just that are pertinent to your business or questions you might have. But we will send out an email tomorrow with a link to the presentation and some other things that we'll talk about towards the end that'll be helpful for you. So who's Big Green IT? I think we just better start with that real quick so you understand where we're coming from. We're based in Sacramento, near Sacramento, California, town of Rockland. We have offices throughout the West in San Diego and Los Angeles. We are a gold partner, and that's, everybody has their different ways they talk about their partnerships or their levels or things. But with Microsoft, we've gone through and made sure we have all the certifications. We've done lots of projects related to Azure, 365, everything in between, and Teams, which we're going to talk about today, is one of the big topics. The stuff at the bottom just is a quick list of the types of customers that we have. I'm sure that on this group on this call today, we have people ranging from maybe as small as 20 or 30 users, meaning employees, up to several thousand, and we work in that entire range. So this should be topic wise, it should be valuable for just about anybody who sits in. Go ahead, Wade, is the next slide.
The next slide is just the Teams.
Okay, so let me I'll finish this off then. Go ahead and go back to the last one. At the top there, I did have a quote, and I want to read this one to you guys just because it's pertinent to everything that we're doing right now. It happens to be an engineering company. The quote is, I just want to pass along our sincere thanks for the help we've provided during this. Unfortunately, my screen is cut off right there. But it must say this COVID-19 pandemic. We have teams working now. It's very much appreciated, and you guys are killing it. Thanks. The big point there is that everybody's in a rush right now. Everybody's in a hurry to move to Teams. 2 weeks ago, we did a webinar that was more of an introductory to Teams and what you can get out of it, how it works. This is more, a little bit more advanced. This is how we're going to make the most out of all the features that are available within Teams and some of the advanced topics and the ways people are using it today. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get our presentation started. I'd like to introduce Wade Walker. He is our Director of Cloud Services. Wade, I cannot unfortunately see the poll questions to be able to ask them and be able to institute that. So either you might be able to do that, or if Carrie's on, she might be able to do that for us.
Let me see. First poll question is, are you currently using Office 365? So let's launch that poll. I see people are answering. Thank you very much. All right, half the attendees are voted. One person, one vote. Let's get them all in. All right, right now we're at about 75% yes using Office 365, 25% no. Keep this poll open for about 10 more seconds. Okay, so we're gonna finish this poll. It's basically 75-25 like before. And then one more poll is, are you currently using Teams? So if we could get everybody's answer on that one as well. And this helps me, especially as I'm doing the presentation. I might change some things up to cater this presentation to the audience. So we're at 45% yes to Teams, 55% no to Teams. So a lot of people here that have not been using Microsoft Teams yet. About 10 more seconds for this poll. It's actually heading to 40. Yeah, so it's almost 50-50. We did a Teams webinar 2 weeks ago that many of you attended, and it's about the same ratio. But we do have some new people in attendance. We wanted to capture that information, so I'm going to close this poll now. Thank you very much. Boom. So now we're back to sharing. Jeff, we might have lost your webcam.
That's okay. It's about you for the next 25 minutes.
Beautiful. Let the ogre speak. All right. Let's see, get to the next slide. So Wade Walker here, Director of Cloud Technologies at Big Green. And thanks for joining today's presentation. I'm about 35 minutes north of San Diego in a city called Carlsbad. I do fight allergies, and it's about 75 degrees here today, a lot of pollen in the air, so I will have to take a few breaks to take a drink. So apologies for the world of living in allergies in an area with a lot of pollen. Today we're going to focus on maximizing your adoption during rollout of Teams. So this is really going to be focused more on the deployment of Teams. And if there's questions that you put in along the way, feel free to enter those questions, do things, and then Jeff can help guide me if there's a certain trends that are appearing in the questions. Agenda for today's meeting: developing a strategic rollout plan, mapping out your adoption phases, working on something that we get a lot of questions on this. We're bucketing it into it's called adoption and change management. So really making sure you can have your teams to roll out, have its any kind of changes documented, and then ensure that maximum adoption within your organization. Setting up an end user training program, and then leveraging available deployment and training tools. There's something kind of cool here at the end that's a recent release from Microsoft, a recent product, and well, I should say a product, but a service and preview for Teams that's really, really helpful and fits very well into today's presentation. I'm adding this slide back in. I did this last week as well. This is the Teams client. So for those of you that aren't using Teams, let me get this little marker here. Arrow. Teams, you can do chatting in Teams, so you can start a new chat, as we see here. This little button right here where you can start a chat, and you can do one-to-one chat, so just like any kind of chat, text messaging. And then there's group chats with one-to-many people. And then if you're in a channel in a team, these are called channels here that I've got the highlight next to. You can chat within the channel as it would be right here. And then that chat stays persistent to the channel, stays in the channel. And you can go back and read that at any time. Teams also has files in it, so you can add files to a team. Every team is basically a Microsoft Office 365 group, and that group has a SharePoint site where you can store all your files. And let's see, it's easy to navigate around Teams here. These icons on the left here for chatting, going into your Teams, going into your calendar, and then if you've got the Teams voice option, which we do here at Big Green IT, Teams is also our phone system. Then if Teams is your phone system, you can do your calling and everything with your phone number that's assigned to you. And then up here, there's also a search bar, so you can search through all your Teams and channels for information. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. We did this in the previous webinar. I actually exited the presentation and I went into a live demo of the Teams client. So for the interest of time, we're going to move on, but it's important to just review the Teams client here, since about only less than half the people have been using Teams. Another picture of the Teams client app here, as we just mentioned, and this has just a little more information. This is really focused on the files. It's interesting, we get a lot of interest in Teams and files, and when people ask, hey, I didn't realize that you could, really do that with there. And again, here's the files here, and I blew this one up to show that you can, one, if you're uses SharePoint Online, this link here shows you how you can open up the files in SharePoint. And for those of us that, I should say, travel a lot, or I want to say travel a lot, for those of us that used to travel a lot, and hopefully we'll travel again in the future and you're offline a lot, this little sync button here will then synchronize these files to your computer, and you can use them offline. When you get back online, then the files get synchronized up to SharePoint Online, which is really a great feature for those of us that are road warriors, and soon will become road warriors again. From a strategic rollout plan perspective, funny little icon here, first thing to do is to get started, duh, but it is important to get started. And for many of our customers, they had to get started overnight. So when the work from home orders came in their city, their county, their state, for those who had even maybe just dabbled in it or hadn't even started Teams, they had to get started and get started overnight. Past 4, 5, 6 weeks for us have been really focused on helping out a lot of our customers get started in Teams. And then as we get started, then the next thing is, okay, now that I'm starting, I'm using it, what next? So it really is important to kind of think about certain phases that you're going to deploy Teams. So this is one of the recommended ways to do it. First is obviously to get started. Next is to look at chat, Teams, channels, and apps. So as I was clicking around in that Teams picture before, first you can start with chat, which is easy, chatting back and forth to people, get my thumb in the right spot. And then creating teams. And yeah.
We have one quick question. I apologize for interrupting. Can you schedule a meeting within a channel?
Yes, channels can have meetings. Channels can have recurring meetings. And then the channel that is, if there were, as you can see here, let me get this mark here. As you can see in this picture right here, here is a meeting that's in a channel. And then by default, people that are in that channel can join that meeting, and they can see it right here, and they can join it from right here in the Teams app. So that's a great question. Back to, bear with me as I look at my other screen. And that was Chuck Ray, everybody. So as Jeff mentioned earlier, at the end of this presentation, you're going to get the slide deck, and I've got links to all these things, all the hyperlinks to this, so you don't have to write things down. Chuck will be sending that out. So now you've heard his voice, and you've probably seen emails from him, and you'll see some more. Again, now let me fix my little thing. It had moved my camera. There we go. So chat, Teams, channels, and apps. And then the next thing to focus on is meetings and conferencing. So using Teams for your meetings, using Teams for conferences. And then the last step, like I said, for a lot of companies is considering Teams as their voice option. Interestingly enough, two organizations that we helped rapidly adopt Teams in the past month came to me yesterday and said, hey, Wade, we're really seriously thinking now about using the voice option of Teams and making it our phone system. So I think we'll see a lot of interest in that. And again, we're 100% on Teams as our voice system. So all phone calls we make, all phone calls that come in, everything is on the Teams platform. Next, adoption phases. It's really important to make sure you've got these adoption phases set and scheduled. And as we go through these, I get to my thing again, arrow. First, get your gather your team, get your stakeholders. As we all know in projects, it's really important to have your stakeholders, your champions, support from your executive management team. So make sure you've got that team, got everybody put together. Focus on your business scenarios. People use Teams differently, right? We've got some companies, like Jeff mentioned, that quote from an engineering firm. They might have some things for Teams that are different than our customers at our restaurant, have multiple restaurants, or those that are casinos or tribes, Native American tribes. So it really is going to be customized to your environment. So make sure we focus on that prioritization. There's a technical planning, and I'll show some details in this later on in the presentation. But very important to focus on your networking, your security, your mobile support and deployment, and now the work from home environment that is prevalent for all of us. Complete your pilots and your broad onboarding. For many of us lately, we haven't had a chance to do a pilot. We just had to move teams immediately for our customers. At Big Green, we work from home a lot, so the impact of having to work from home didn't hit us as hard as others, but for many other companies that had to literally go to Teams almost overnight, they didn't get a chance to do this. But normally you get a chance to pilot it and test it. And then lastly is measure, manage, and drive your adoption, and that hits into the adoption and change management that I was mentioning earlier. Next slide. In adoption and change management, I've got a link for this later. Microsoft does have a nice set of documentation on how to do your adoption and change management, including what they say your customer success kit. So there's a lot of focuses or a lot of details and information from Microsoft on how to do your adoption change management. We do this for a lot of our customers that really want to deploy things in a nice, disciplined manner, and then use change management principles to ensure that teams and channels are only created by certain people, or they have to be approved to be created. Certain guidelines for chat and for custom applications in Teams, so on and so forth. Regarding end user training, it's always great when you can do training for free. Everybody likes free training because it's obviously free, and in this case here, Microsoft has a number of very digestible, 30-second to 2 or 3 minute bites of various training solutions or training videos, and so they're available. I've got a link to this at the end of the presentation, but you can see here you can start with a little quick start for everybody. Then for those that need an intro, they can click on this and do this intro, and then the list goes on all the way through these different options here. So it's really easy for anybody to click on these links and just watch a typical 2-minute type video, and it doesn't take long. And I've gone through all these, and these are actually very, very useful. In addition, Microsoft has their own YouTube channel. As you can see, these are longer. These are less digestible because they take more time, but these can be really, really helpful for your organizations as well. They get really in-depth, and you can take parts of them and customize them for your organization. A company we work with is called Quick Help. They also have Teams training and Office 365 training, and that's something we offer to our customers free for 45 days. That you can do some free training from Quick Help, and it's similar to the previous slide where it's digestible bites of a few minutes of training. Next is in the Teams deployment section. So I brought this in because I wanted to show something that's relatively new in everybody's Microsoft 365 tenant. You'll see if you log into your Office Microsoft 365 Admin Center, on your main homepage is now this tile called Microsoft Teams, and it shows you where, if you've got Teams turned on for your organization, that you might need to set up some, check on some of your steps to make sure everything's set up. And then if you want guest access turned on, hey, in this scenario, the guest access is not turned on. So clearly Microsoft has responded to what's happening for them with Teams. And I saw yesterday they went from 44 million users in a month to last month to 75, and that's a million, and that's kind of like Team subscribers. That's not just attendees, that's people that have accounts in Teams that can join Teams, schedule meetings, so on and so forth. So as Teams has become a much bigger part of the conversation within Office 365, then Microsoft added this new tile here to show you a quick little status and snapshot of where you are in your Teams deployment. And I'll show some more information related to this a little bit later on. A new feature, and this is going to be now the bulk of what I'm going to be showing coming up here. A new feature that I mentioned earlier is what's called Teams Advisor. And Teams Advisor, again, is also in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. It's in the Teams Admin Center, and it's a new thing. It's in preview, so it's still going to be developed. But basically, as you saw that on one of the earlier slides where I said, get started, then your next thing was chat, Teams, channels, and apps, and then which is right here, and then next was meetings and conferences below it. For Teams Advisor, if you kind of check this box and go through the steps here, what Microsoft has done is one, where this icon is, this is their planner icon. So by clicking on this, this will take you and create a Microsoft project plan in Planner for all the steps you need to do, which is really kind of great. This makes you look good. It makes all of us look good because you got a project plan that's made for you based on where you are in your Teams deployment. And also it has a Microsoft Forms link, and it creates this process here in Teams Advisor creates a form, a survey that you can send to your end users and get their feedback on, how the Teams is working. They're basically their customer satisfaction, their customer sat on the Teams environment. And I'll show something here next related to this.
So Wade, let me just jump in for a second as you're getting through that. So some of this, and a lot of it comes to context, right? We're all trying to figure out how to put Teams into play. We're all trying to figure out how to not let it also get away from us. And I know at the beginning there, I mentioned an engineering company and a nice quote from them, but really, I think it's important for us to, or at least me, to tell a couple of topic stories along those lines. And for that particular company, there's one thing with Teams, and for all of you that have already started working with it, you realize that we call it Teams Sprawl. And for all of us who have been doing things in IT for a long time, we did virtualization. There was virtualization sprawl, right? We got VMware, and all of a sudden, instead of having to buy a new computer and go through purchasing, boom, we could just start another VM, another VM, another VM, and all of a sudden we have VMware sprawl, and it's everywhere. And then we got to figure out backup policies. We got to figure out all this other stuff after the fact. Same type of thing can happen with Teams. And so that's why on the deployment part of it, it gets very interesting about, there's kind of a global, you turn it on. But if you think about it, okay, if I can make a channel, there's the typical ones. There's one for marketing, there's one for, maybe sales, there's one for facilities, there's one for HR. But then if anybody can start a team and just start it up, all of a sudden, if you know, who approves it, who's part of the group, who's part of the, where's all the governance that goes with it. And in a small company of maybe, I don't know, 20 or 50 people, that's not really a big deal, because it's, you only have so many people to work with. But you know, we've got a couple customers that have, one has 11,000 employees, another one came to us after the fact and they have 20,000 employees. And you can imagine, if you just turn it on and you let it loose, it's really hard to get all that stuff back. So as much as you can do up front with determining some of these, you know, that's
Yep.
why I like what the Wade put up there with the checklist. It really helps. And in the case of the engineering company, you know, we've been working with them on Office 365 in general for 6 months or so. And then this all hit, you know, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago with the quarantine and work from home. And they're like, oh my gosh, we need Teams, can you turn it on? But then they're like, oh, but we don't want people to just be able to make their own channels and do all that stuff. We haven't even come up with the policy yet or the procedure yet. So we actually, one of our engineers worked with Microsoft, and even though it's not a, you know, something that's available out of the box, we were able to make it so that they could have chat, they could do the files part of it, they could do voice, at least between each other, but they didn't have all of the ability to create the channels, at least not yet. They want to kind of do that in phase 2. So it took us about 48 hours, 250 people figured it out so that they could roll that out. So I know sometimes as we go through presentations like this, we have the slides and all of this information is pertinent, but sometimes it's hard to think, okay, how's this apply to me? So I'll probably interrupt once in a while to throw out a couple of those examples, but really keep in mind that this is not just, oh, let's turn on Teams. It can be, but
Right.
really it's thinking about how it's going to be used, who's going to use it, what are the groups, and how it fits to your business. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, Wade.
No, that's perfect. And that hits really well with this. This is the, as I mentioned, for Teams Advisor, and this is the, you know, the project plan that has been created. And you can see here, when we did the Teams Advisor, what happened is it automatically created 2 channels. It creates a deployment team, and it creates 2 channels. One is the chat, Teams, channels and apps. The other one is meetings and conferencing. And then in each of these channels is a Microsoft project plan using Planner. So it adds the Planner app to tab to this particular channel. And then you can see here, it adds, it creates different sections for your project plan. One is to set up this planner. So let's do a project kickoff. And you know, you can see there for the project kickoff, it kind of says what to do. If I were to click on that kickoff, it actually opens up the entire action item and who it's assigned to. Next is the get ready. So you can see the tasks here about getting ready. And then as Jeff mentioned, define usage scenarios. Again, every business has its own customized usage scenario. And as Jeff mentioned from one of our customers, it was really just to start with a very small subset of features, chat and a few other features, to a small subset of users. So in this case, you know, to a pilot set of users, and really just focus on one workload, one Teams workload at a time. And the nice thing about this plan, this project plan that's put together for you, is all these action items are here automatically created. You can customize them yourself. You can add things to them and subtract things out of them. And then you can assign these tasks to people in your organization and have them, you know, complete their tasks and you know, do everything, you know, including you turning on the Teams for pilot users, monitoring usage and feedback, so on and so forth. And then in the case of, in this case where there was the rollout to early adopters, if that's the strategy that's working for you, then after that early adopter, the beta testers, then you can focus on the organization-wide rollout, and then have the action items that are related to an organization rollout are underneath that as well. So it's really kind of a slick feature of Teams Advisor, where creates a project plan for you, creates activities to do, has tasks. You have to assign the tasks to people, and then you can chart your typical project management. You can see your status. You can see, you know, how far you are along and what's going on. There are some charts here and schedules. And so if you've ever used the Planner app or other types of project planning tools such as Trello or Microsoft Project, and the list goes on, this is very similar to all of those, and is a great way to have a project plan for rolling out Teams for your organization. Next, and then also in this, also what it creates, as I mentioned in the channels, is Microsoft Forms. So it creates or adds a Forms tab up into to this channel, and then here's an automatic survey that is created. You can customize the survey, but it creates a survey for you that can be then sent out to your employees, your Teams users, and you don't have to create it. It's already there. So nice thing about this Teams Advisor is this is what it does for you, creating this project plan, and then end user surveys if end user surveys are interesting to your organization. Next here is a slide I showed earlier, but really talking about governance. And it's a picture I showed earlier. It's a new slide. But as Jeff talked about, governance is important because team sprawl can happen very quickly. If everybody in your organization is allowed to create a team and everybody can create a channel, you can have teams and channels, and you can have what's called, team sprawl, channel sprawl. So it's really important from a deployment standpoint is to have that kind of governance and just make sure your organization and your team setup fits that governance. And the one scenario Jeff mentioned where they started, one customer started with chat only, they didn't have to worry about team sprawl because they had no way for anybody to create teams or channels until they wanted to turn that on. So it's a real disciplined way to have some governance on your team's organization. So very important steps here for.
Yeah, and it's this one I like to hit on a lot because it's you want to have people be creative. You want them to think about how many different ways that they could use Teams. You want it so that if there's a fundraising group in your company and it needs one person from HR, it needs two people from facilities, it needs another volunteer from the marketing group, when there's going to be flyers that are made and you want to save those into files, you want to be able to allow that creativity to happen. You want people to embrace it and use it. They're chatting with each other within that channel. They are attaching all the files that are pertinent. Just the people in that can see them. You want to do all that. It's just making sure that depending on the size of the organization, that teams don't, or a channel gets set up by one person, they start using it and they invite people to it. But then the other person who maybe didn't get invited that week didn't know that a channel was started, and they start one that's real similar to it, and you've got things all over the place. So it's I guess the other reason we're emphasizing this, or I'm emphasizing it, is it's one of those things that the upfront will save you so much heartache on the back end. Right. There is a company that came to us, like I said, after the fact. I don't even know if I said this one story yet, but they're 20,000 users and they just turned it on. I'll just say it's an entertainment company. Didn't realize it, ran it kind of for 3 or 4 months, and all of a sudden went, oh my gosh, look what happened. So and it can, I guess, in a sense, it can be fixed, but it's so difficult. It's so much easier to make sure that everyone knows, who's going to create the channels, who's going to work with them, who has the authority to even do some of these things, that upfront planning. Now, all that being said, I'd use the example of the engineering company that said, we can't wait for all that. we need, people are working from home now, so we need to do this today. And so we realize a lot of people are in that situation. So think about that as you turn it on, because if you say, what is Teams to 10 people, you'll probably get 10 different answers, just like what's the cloud to 10 people, 10 different answers. Because some people, for Teams, it might just be simplistic. It is, I need to chat with some of my peers and I'm going to use Teams to do that. It might be a place where we're having a common repository because we all hate using SharePoint. So we built a Teams channel so that we could get to those files in a much easier way to do. So, so just keep all of this in mind. There's nothing today that there's going to be things. All we hope that we do is get your wheels turning about things that might affect you, ways you might be able to use it. We got a few more things coming up here we'll talk about. But that's the best that can come out of this, and is thinking about some of the gotchas that we've already run into and some of the planning, and then get the wheels turning to be creative to how far you could actually take this as a useful tool. So,
amen to that. Yep. No, absolutely. And like Jeff said, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, it's kind of hard to get it back in. So governance is important there. So related to this, we have a 1-hour Teams assessment that we are offering to everybody. You can email me at wadew@biggreenit.com, and I can help you. We can get started with this 1-hour assessment and really just kind of go through your Teams environment, see what's set up, what's turned on, what's turned off, and then if you want to enable like guest access. Guest access is great. It allows you to message people in Teams that are outside your organization, allows you to grant access to, let's see, access to shared files. So if you turn on guest access and you want them to be able to access share files, you can do that. And you can get them involved with, again, chat live with individuals and text, audio, video. So all these great Teams features that you can then either keep internally or you can have guest access, so you can have things external. And then you might have a security posture that we really need to enforce within your Teams environment. And so during that, this 1-hour assessment, we can assist you with that. Second to last slide here, these are all the links that I promised that would be here. So you'll see this one page here has all of these links that are relevant to the slides, and they're sort of in the order of the slide deck, so they're very chronological. And now we're at our last slide. Now we're available for any questions.
Let me throw a couple things out there. And by the way, if you're thinking of questions right now, go ahead and start typing them in. But and I was unfortunately offline for about 5 minutes of this, so if you covered it. But the other thing we wanted to talk about and make sure that we expressed was that this, being a little bit more advanced topic than perhaps the webinar we did 2 weeks ago. There are things that I have seen with customers that make it makes me interested in what Teams can do. Yes, there's all the basic stuff, and yes, some companies just want to have a way to have persistent chat and have a way to have it backed up and have a way to do those things. Some people want to get into Teams so that they could use a secure platform for doing conference video and conference calls instead of Zoom or instead of something else. Or, and if you already own 365, you've got Teams to a certain degree, to certain levels on your licenses. And how much can you get out of it? What else can I do? So some of the things that maybe to think about are we've got one company. This happened to be a gaming company, but and that's casino gaming. But in that particular industry, there's a lot of applications that are old and legacy and difficult interfaces and kind of tough to use to the extent that people don't use them, or there's the company that wrote the application has no concept of modern technology, and they're not putting an app on a phone that you can carry around the casino floor or something like that. So there are bots that can be written and built between legacy applications or current applications and Teams, so that someone might be able to access an application for the little that they may need to integrate with it, but they do it from Teams, and Teams can be on your phone. Since it's on your phone, I can access that. One example, a simple one, was a timekeeping application. Nothing as extensive as Chronos or some of those that you guys, that some of the people out there might use. But for timekeeping, I now could have that. If there's not an app available, I can make it associated with a Teams channel. That person who needs to access that goes to Teams, goes to the channel, records their time, whatever it might need to be. Never had to interface with the application that is actually connected on the back end. So a lot of times when you're first thinking about Teams, once again, we're hearing about it everywhere. It's on every ad of every television show that's on right now is about Teams and Microsoft, which is great. But most of it is talking about the collaboration for the video. It's talking about chat, and it's also talking about the use of files. So those are all things that we need to do every day. But as you start getting those down, then it's like we start peeling it back. Well, what else can we do with Teams? Well, what else can we do with Teams? So thinking about bots and thinking about being able to access other applications within Teams is one of those advanced topics. Also, another one is SharePoint. So I mentioned earlier that if you like SharePoint, more power to you. But I'm not a fan of having to navigate through all that stuff. So I am a huge fan of Teams when I know that the people I'm working with and on certain topics, and maybe it's collateral for events, or maybe it's whatever it might be, but the marketing channel with the team with the group that has that, I can now go to just the thing that says files and the files that are pertinent. The fact that it has a SharePoint Online site behind it, that's great. I don't have to know it. I don't have to do it. I don't have to deal with it. But also the reverse is kind of true. So we've got a customer that's in healthcare, 11,000 employees, going through a very large Office 365 migration project for them right now. And the next thing they want to do on the heels of that is they want to take about 200 of their 700 SharePoint sites, yes, 700, but 200 of those, and then front end those with Teams. So whoever has access to those 200 SharePoint sites through the different groups and so forth associated, they actually want to go the other way, migrate those SharePoint sites to SharePoint Online, and then front end them with Teams. So once again, more wheels turning about what the heck can we do with this besides just chat, besides just video, and the things that we are probably trying to accomplish right now, and get thinking about those things. John, I don't know if you had any other examples like that or stuff along those lines, Wade, but I just want to make sure that people, for this particular time, and I realize I'm looking at it right now, it's 10:45, we've gone a few minutes over what we normally would, but to get that idea of what I can do with it. I don't want to sound like an advertisement for Microsoft. I just want to give you guys examples of things that we see every day. So.
Jeff,
Perfect.
if I could interrupt for a moment, we do have one more question. Can the chat be audited after the fact so that it satisfies HIPAA?
So the answer is yes, and we're actually doing this with one of our customers right now. The Office 365 environment has a lot of HIPAA compliance already built into it, and you can then, in the Office 365 world, you can turn on the e-discovery and get information on email, on files, on Teams and chat and all those other things. So yes, that can definitely be audited. And then in Office 365 is a thing called Compliance Manager, which I haven't showed here, but Compliance Manager shows your Office 365 tenant and all the settings that it has and how it works well with HIPAA, with some NIST compliance and a whole bunch of GDPR and CCPA. And contact us and we can help kind of walk you through some of the HIPAA settings and HIPAA controls that you can satisfy to increase your compliance posture with HIPAA or with any other compliance standard.
So we do have one more question.
Yeah, Chuck, let me grab that one, Chuck.
Okay, you got it.
So there's a question here about how Teams operates in a VDI environment. And to answer the question, there's really two parts. The simple answer is it works great. There's one piece that doesn't work perfectly in VDI at this point in time, and that's the audio video portion. Now within the WVD project or product from Microsoft, which is a whole nother webinar we'll be getting into, they're making some changes to the Teams client specifically on how it operates within WVD in order to make audio and video work properly and smoothly for full conferencing or webinars and things of that nature. So that's coming, that's working internally within Microsoft. We're expecting to have general release of that within the next few months, hopefully early summer, might be late summer, but you will be able to use Teams with audio and video from within the WVD environment.
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Any other, Chuck, I can't see the questions. Are there any other questions that have been posted?
No, there are not, Jeff. We're good on the questions.
Okay, good. So generally, once again, if we were all able to be in person and this was a live, lunch and learn, we just had something to eat, we would go through all these topics, we'd ask the questions that we have. And then afterwards, our engineers, our subject matter experts like Wade and Mike, who you just heard his voice, would stay around and we would, sometimes we're there for another hour afterwards. And that's where it really kind of gets into the exciting meat and potatoes of stuff, where a presentation could sometimes be a little bit dry and it just kind of goes through the things. There's a little bit of interaction there, and that's what we did today. But really, once again, if I take anything away from this, it's, okay, how else can we use this? Get the wheels turning, know that we're here, that we can help you. We can, and I know Wade mentioned the 1 hour assessment. It's free. It's being able to talk with Wade or Mike or someone else that can truly just help you answer questions related specifically to Teams.
Yep.
I think, and unless there's anything else, Wade, I'll just go ahead and wrap this up.
Perfect.
We good? Okay.
Yep, we're good.
So, first of all, thanks everybody for spending time with us today. I wish we could have these go for like 2 or 3 hours, but we would lose, pretty much every one of you by the second hour at least. But there's that much stuff that goes on. It's just here is that first step to getting to the next one. Hopefully it came across, we're very personable and easy to approach about all of these topics that we have. A couple reminders that you will get a follow-up email from Chuck, who you heard his voice on, that will have all of the links, or have the link to the slides that we did today, the links to the previous page, or the one you saw that had all the stuff that Wade put together. Also some other information. We've got some upcoming webinars. You'll also get let's see, we've got 1 in 2 weeks. It's more for just beginning Office 365 for people who haven't gotten to 365 yet, of which Teams of course rolls right on the back of it, but that'll be good in 2 weeks. And then I believe that we're planning on somewhere mixed in over the next 6 weeks, WVD, which is Windows Virtual Desktop, which is Mike Procker just mentioned, and then a couple about Azure, which is we're knee deep in Azure projects as a company right now as well. So we'll be going through those at the same time. Now, which topics are next? We only have the one slated for 2 weeks. But in that survey that we're going to send to you, you guys can help us shape kind of where we go from here. What do you want to hear? What's most important to you over the next 6 to 8 weeks? And I think that's about it. So once again, thank you all for joining. I wish we could do these in person, and hopefully we will at some point in time. And everybody, I know you hear it all the time, but everybody, be safe and be healthy.
Yep.
Wait.
Stay safe, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you on future webinars, and looking forward to seeing everybody in person one of these days.
Absolutely. All right.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye.